When you think about 90s boy bands, what comes to mind? Take That, Backstreet Boys, 98 Degrees, Hanson, nsynch, Boys to Men? Well, what if I told you that one of the most promising boy bands from the era actually consisted of Michael Jackson's nephews? This is the story of 3T, the next generation Jackson 5. So, a lot of you may be thinking, what even is 3T? And don't worry, I don't blame you. Although they had the most potential out of any of the boy bands in the 90s, they weren't able to stay relevant for long, and they disappeared as fast as they rose. Well, let me not get too ahead of myself. Let's start from the beginning. Toronto, TJ and Terrell Jackson were the sons of Tito Jackson. Yes, that Jackson. The three brothers were born into music royalty, with their uncle and aunt Michael and Janet being two of the greatest music artists to ever set foot on this earth. This is not including their other uncles and aunts who were either in the Jackson 5 or had successful music careers of their own. Like the rest of their family, the boys grew up in a musical household, learning to sing and dance at a young age. It was said that they used to imitate their famous family members by using household objects like mops and instruments. Opportunity soon struck when their uncle Michael opened his own music label, MJJ Music, in the mid-90s. The trio was signed immediately, and Michael Jackson began to mentor them into becoming the next gen Jackson 5, or 3 in this case. They actually got their band name 3T from their mother, Dee Dee, who used to call them the 3Ts. Sadly, not long after releasing their first official project, tragedy struck. Dee Dee, now divorced from Tito, was found dead in her boyfriend, Don Bahana's pool in 1994. Though first ruled as an accidental drowning, it was later ruled as a homicide, after prosecutors successfully argued that Dee Dee had been beaten. Bahana was found guilty of second-degree murder in 1998. He has loudly proclaimed innocence and has spent decades trying to fight the conviction. In 1995, the 3Ts, now 3T, channeled that tragedy into their music. Under the watchful eye of Uncle MJ, Michael signed them to his label MJJ Music, wrote songs and served as executive producer for their debut album, Brotherhood. Once the group was signed, they went on to release their first single, Anything, in 1995. It was a slow and warm ballad that did decent in the charts. It peaked at number 2 in the Netherlands, Sweden and the UK, whilst in the States it peaked at number 15. Although the song was received favourably, it was criticised for sounding a bit too much like Michael Jackson. But even then, this wasn't a bad start for them at all. Their first album, Brotherhood, was released the same year, and it was followed by multiple other singles such as Tease Me, 24/7 and Got to Be You, which all did modestly well. Their uncle Michael was even featured in some of the songs such as I Need You and arguably the group's most famous song, Why. Originally written and recorded for Michael Jackson's 9th album, History, Why was removed and gifted to 3T for their debut album. The song features Michael singing the chorus whilst the trio sing the verses. It was released alongside a music video, which was a big deal as any video featuring MJ would. This is probably my favourite 3T song. All their voices go really well together. Did Michael Jackson carry the song? Maybe, but it was Michael Jackson, so it's going to be very hard to outperform him anyway. The song was my entry point into 3T, and it has a special place in my heart. Brotherhood received positive to mixed reviews from critics. Although the ballads were praised, the other more experimental songs weren't. They were also criticised for sounding too much like their uncle. Although being compared to the King of Pop would usually be seen as a compliment, in this case people were expecting King of Pop-like quality. At the end of the day, Michael Jackson couldn't even top his 80s material. So 3T were basically doomed from the start. And the fact that one of their best songs is essentially an unreleased Michael Jackson track, it was basically a slap in the face since the songs they had written and produced themselves didn't fare as well. Despite this, the album sold over 3 million copies worldwide, and it peaked at number 127 on the US Billboard 200, while in the UK it peaked at 11 on the UK albums chart. Although the group didn't make much waves stateside, they were ranked the second biggest music group in Europe, just behind the Spice Girls, making them the biggest boy band, which still is a very big deal. The group embarked on a successful European tour in 1997, and they wrote and produced songs for soundtracks to films such as The Jacksons, An American Dream, Free Willy, Free Willy 2, Men in Black, and Trippin'. After the release of Brotherhood, 3T collaborated with their uncle once again and began to work on their second album. Over 20 songs were recorded and 12 were planned to be on the final track list. This project was completed, but it was never released due to the drama between Sony and Michael Jackson. It was during this time that MJJ Music was dissolved entirely. Despite this setback, the group continued to tour in Europe, and they wrote songs for their aunt Janet Jackson as well as Lindsay Lohan and Bruno Mars. After signing to French label TF1 NRJ and Dutch label Diggedance in 2004, they released their sophomore album Identity, almost a decade after their debut. The lead single was a Europop cover of Lionel Richie's song Stuck on You. Both the album and the song weren't received that well. The album only charted in Netherlands, Belgium and France, the highest being 32 in the Netherlands. Although they went with the more ballad route, which is most definitely their strength, there wasn't much of an evolution from Brotherhood. It feels very much the same, like they were stuck back in the 90s. If they had released this maybe a year or two after their debut, it may have been acceptable. But this came out 9 years after Brotherhood, almost a decade. Most of their fans would have grown up and moved on by now. I don't think this project is bad at all, but the only song I have in my playlist is Sex Appeal. It was probably the only song that actually felt timely for the era. I could imagine Justin Timberlake singing this. After the underperformance of Identity, 3T stayed under the radar, mainly doing more songwriting jobs for other artists. They also appeared in a few TV shows, including one for Channel 4, where they searched for a house to purchase in Devon. In 2009, tragedy struck for the trio once again, when their uncle Michael passed away. Like their aunt Janet, the group did several tribute performances in honor of the King of Pop, such as the Michael Forever tribute concert, where they performed alongside JLS, Leona Lewis, Beyonce, Craig David, CeeLo Green, Jamie Foxx and Jennifer Hudson. The group also defended him against the SA allegations that still follow the deceased singer to this day. In 2012, TJ and his grandmother Catherine took on the roles as legal guardians for Michael's children, Paris, Blanket and Prince. In 2007, Catherine stepped down from the position, and as Michael's two oldest were legally adults, TJ is now the sole guardian of Blanket. In 2015, they released The Power of Love, followed by their most recent project, Chapter 3, in tribute to their late mother, and possibly to coincide with their reality series, The Jacksons' Next Generation. Although it's not their best work, the group managed to find their own voice, while still sticking to what they knew best. Fire is probably my favourite track. Neither the album or the singles charted, but I don't think it was made to do that anyway. It was more of a passion project. And lastly, they appeared on their father's album, Tito Time. And I have to say, this is one of their best songs. It's really unique, and their vocals are on point. Like, check it out. Terrell was the first member of 3T that had some sort of solo career. He released 2 EPs in 2012, but they didn't really make any waves. But I think with the right marketing, he could carry a solo career. TJ has also been releasing music solo, and he seems to be the most active of the trio. He released an EP in 2020, and as of 2021, he's still pumping out new singles. And I will have to say, his music is really good. My favourite song from him is Last Night. I kind of get the Weekend vibes from it, but it's still very unique. Despite being the biggest boy band in Europe for a time, they still weren't able to gain international success, even in their home country. I'm not trying to take away from their European accomplishments. They were able to snag the #1 boy band place with just one album, which is a very big deal. However, they unfortunately didn't have much staying power. So let's talk about why they fell. Number 1, the band name. Okay, I understand that this name has sentimental value and it probably means a lot to the trio. However, as a band name, 3T doesn't do much for me. I think a band name should be a statement. 3T just means three brothers whose name begins with T. I really think that they should have went with something like the Jackson 3 or the Jacksons or something like that. At the end of the day, they were signed to Michael Jackson's label. They were mentored by Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson produced their albums, as well as many of their songs, and he was their uncle. At least if they called themselves the Jacksons, people would have known what to expect, and there may have been less complaints about them sounding too much like their uncle. The name 3T implied that they were something entirely different, and many people just didn't get that vibe from them. In my opinion, they should have gone full out. It was either that or go Janet Jackson's route, which was find a new label and develop your own sound. They kind of settled in the middle and it didn't really work out for them. 2. Large gap between albums. The gap between album 1 and 2 was 9 years. 9 years. I mean, this is a hiatus that even the most of established artists don't take, as it's basically a death sentence for your career. By the time Identity released, all the hype surrounding this group had been lost. I mean, it wasn't entirely their fault. They had issues with their label, and that was out of their control. As I said before, they even had a second album ready in the 90s. It was just unable to be released, though I do hope we can hear it someday. I just think that it's unfortunate because they are so incredibly talented. I can't stress that enough. All three of them can really sing well, and I love them as a group. I still listen to them regularly. Should they make a comeback? I would love to see it, though I do think the chances of that happening are very slim. The best thing you could do would be to stream their music. I mean, if it gets a lot of buzz, something could happen. Anyways, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed the video. Have a great day. Tell me if you remember 3T or if you're going to start listening to their music. But yeah, like, share, subscribe, drink water, be healthy, and just have a great life. Goodbye.